Imagine you take a big bucket of toy building blocks, dump them out onto the floor, and step back. You wouldn't expect those loose pieces to suddenly snap themselves together and build a moving, working castle all on their own. Usually, things don't just assemble themselves. But if we go back 4 billion years, that's the exact situation we find on Earth. Back then, the planet was completely silent. There were no plants, no animals, and no microscopic bugs. It was just a giant, spinning rock covered in water and harsh gases. Scientists have a specific name for that moment when non-living chemicals make the jump to becoming alive: abiogenesis. It is the study of how the very first spark of life could begin without any help from a builder. It sounds like a tall tale, but every living thing today, from the oldest, since there were no humans or builders around 4 billion years ago, we have to look for the invisible forces that caused those scattered blocks to click together for the very first time. To get blocks to stick together, you need energy, and early Earth had plenty of it. The young planet was a chaotic, restless place where the environment was constantly being hammered by raw power. The sky was filled with massive lightning storms, dumping huge amounts of electricity into the atmosphere. This photograph of a modern volcano shows how lightning still cracks through ash clouds today, providing a glimpse of the energy hitting the early oceans. Deep underwater, the ocean floor was churning. Cracks in the Earth's crust acted like natural ovens. As you see in this photograph of a deep-sea hydrothermal vent, these chimneys were constantly pumping heat and minerals into the dark water. That intense heat and electricity forced simple atoms to crash into each other and bond. They clicked together to form larger, stickier multi-block pieces called amino acids, the first real construction materials for life. We know this process works because we can repeat it in the lab. In this photograph, you can see a famous experiment where researchers filled glass tubes with early Earth gases and zapped them with electricity. Sure enough, those bigger, stickier building blocks formed right inside the tubes. By combining these basic chemicals with extreme energy, the lifeless ocean became a thick soup, filled with the ingredients to build a living cell. Over time, blocks formed 3 cell essentials: a protective wall, worker proteins, and an instruction manual. But this creates a loop. Workers are needed to read instructions, and instructions to build workers. Enter RNA, a multitasker acting as both a tool and a manual. Because RNA could do both jobs at the same time, it allowed those early building blocks to start organizing themselves. It didn't have to wait for a perfect system to develop. It could start doing the work of life immediately. By pulling double duty, RNA provided the instructions and the simple tools needed to finally assemble the very first living machine. Everything came together when those RNA tools and worker pieces were trapped inside a protective, oily bubble, holding these busy chemicals in one safe place, separate from the rest of the ocean. To truly be alive, this little bubble had to do more than just sit there. It had to maintain its wall, it had to use energy to stay active, and, most importantly, it had to make a copy of itself. Eventually, that little bubble grew and pulled itself apart into 2 identical living pieces. At that moment, the first successful family line began. We call this first successful cell the original relative of everything on Earth. It is the great-grandparent of every tree, bird, and human being alive today. That first successful split started a chain reaction that has been running for billions of years. This photograph shows a fossilized rock called a stromatolite. It's a physical record of the layered homes built by those early microscopic ancestors, and we can still find them in the oldest rocks on Earth. Once that original relative figured out how to copy itself, life began to spread. It multiplied and adapted, slowly finding new ways to survive in a changing world. Those tiny microscopic bubbles led to massive forests, to giant dinosaurs, and our modern civilization. Look at your own hands. You are looking at trillions of individual cells all working together, and every single one is made of those same basic block types that first clicked together in that ancient ocean. We are a part of the Earth's story. We are made of the exact same non-living pieces as the rocks and the water, just clicked together in the most complex and amazing way imaginable.